In the year 1945, my great-great-grandfather, serving in the army, wondered when he'd get to go home to his wife and the son he'd never seen. He got his wish when the U.S. ended World War II by dropping atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki in the 21st century. People awoke from the American dream. Years of consumption led to shortages of every major resource. The entire world unraveled. Peace became a distant memory.
Voltec stock continues to rise as tensions with China reach an all-time high. With the world poised on the brink of war, Voltec is reporting a record number of reservations. We do have coming in. That's confirmed reports. I repeat, confirmed reports of nuclear detonations.
One death is a tragedy, a million deaths are a statistic. This is a quote that is often attributed to Joseph Stalin. However, there is no evidence that Stalin ever said this. Instead, this most likely originated from Kurt Tucholsky, who was a German journalist and writer. And while this quote is somewhat dark, it does carry an ounce of truth. It's very easy for the human mind to comprehend 1 in smaller numbers, but when we get to 1 million, it's much more difficult. But even 1 million, I think, can be comprehended. For example, if we had $1 million in $1 bills and we extended these $1 bills end to end, it would extend for 97 miles, roughly, or 156 kilometers. Now, 100 miles is a long distance, no doubt, but the human mind can imagine it. But let's do that with $1 billion. If you had 1 billion $1 bills and laid them end to end, it would measure 96,900 miles and would extend around the Earth almost 4 times. That is a really big number, so let's bring it down to a more manageable number, 45. And 45 is much more reasonable. For example, most humans could easily think of 45 people that they know or have known and do it pretty effortlessly. And 45 is also the winter population of the Kerguelen Islands in the southern Indian Ocean, one of the most remote places on Earth. This remote island is owned by the French, and there's always researchers on the island. And if we increase the scale, by the year 2077, according to Worldometer, there will be over 10 billion people on planet Earth. No small number indeed. And in the Fallout universe, relations between China and the United States reached their boiling point in the year 2077, resulting in a nuclear war. We can estimate that around 10 billion people died during the course of this war, the deadliest and perhaps one of the shortest wars in human history. And while the destruction and mayhem caused by nuclear war would be immense, humanity would still survive. In places like the Kerguelen Islands, people would continue to live. It might not be a very good existence, but life would continue. Even in the Fallout universe, not every inch of America was touched by nuclear fire. Some parts were left unscathed, and that is just where our friend Randall Dean Clark found himself at the time of the Great War. Whether he is lucky or unlucky is up to you to decide. And this is where our story begins. One person, one individual, one story. It's easy to say in Fallout that 10 billion people died in an instant. But what does that really mean? Hopefully, the story of Randall Dean Clark can help shed some light on what that means. When you first arrive at Zion Valley, you have to make your way to Angel Cave in order to meet up with Joshua Graham. After a meeting with Joshua Graham, you are free to exit Angel Cave from a second entrance. This second entrance will lead you to an elevated area that is otherwise inaccessible, that overlooks the Eastern Virgin River. However, there's not really a whole lot here. There's a small camp and some dead horses walking around, and occasionally Joshua Graham himself will come out and walk around. Here on the minimap, you can see the location of this elevated platform. Now, just when you think there's really nothing of interest here besides a nice view, over by this cliff we can find a handprint and a duffel bag. This duffel bag has various good loot inside of it, and after looting the bag, you'll get a marker for Survivalist's Bounty. This is our first indication that there are more of these bags littered around Zion. Again, as you approach Angel Cave, you might stumble upon a small cave tucked behind the canyon. This is called Fallen Rock Cave, and inside we can begin to learn about the survivalist. And here on the minimap, you can see the location of Fallen Rock Cave, almost directly north of Angel Cave. Approaching the cave is easy, as it is just off the banks of the East Virgin River. Inside the cave, we will find several tripwires along with landmines, so definitely make sure to tread carefully. Whoever lived here before was very paranoid. And as we move further in, we can find the frag mines. Now, these frag mines will kind of blend in with the ground, so you have to be careful. This frag mine is upside down, and it really blends in with the ground. As we continue to push forward, we find a fork in the road, and we decide to go right. Heading right, we will find another tripwire, and then 2 frag mines. However, I almost missed that frag mine right there, and I got very lucky. And eventually we will stumble upon a large central chamber, and it appears that someone or something has been living in here, and they left us a frag mine underneath a teddy bear as a welcoming gift. There's various loot in this small camp. Some of the loot includes these drained microfusion cells next to this terminal. Interesting that there's a terminal in a cave. Now there's also some wooden crates and a workbench that we can use, and a reloading bench, making this a good place for player housing. And as we look over, we will find another one of those duffel bags, those survivalist sacks that contains pretty good loot inside of it, this time having ammo, bobby pins, and a lot of ammunition. And upon reading the terminal, we find 2 entries, and they read, Year 2077, October 28th, 5 days on foot, still can't sleep. Outside, it's like nothing happened. Sky looks wrong, that's all. Hike back to overturned NatGuard truck near Torqueville? After blisters heal, maybe. Looks like USGS team was researching something here in cave. Cleared out when bombs fell. Left equipment behind. Probably thought they had families to run back to. October 29th. Shar must have said this out loud 1,000 times walking here. Maybe writing it will feel more like you heard. You were right. I was north of Spanish Fork. Took the 77 along Provo Bay to steer clear of town. Would have been home in an hour. Engine died. Truck just stopped. So did a Chrysalis in the other lane. Knew right away. First nuke hit Salt Lake City inside a minute. I was looking south. Lucky man. Flash behind me so bright world looked on fire. Old couple from the Chrysalis starts screaming they can't see. Didn't watch you die, Shar. Saved my eyes. Counted 12 more flashes next 7 minutes. Ground shook each time. 18 seconds later. When nothing hit for half hour, took a look. Global fire where you and Alex died. Didn't kid myself. Didn't know what to do. Grabbed my pack and rifle. Saw to the old couple. Sat them up against car. Let them hold and comfort each other. Told them I was going to get help. Everything will be okay. 1 bullet through both heads, instant. 5-day hike back to Zion. You told me, stop running off to the wild. Man belongs with his family. You were right. You were right. You were right. You were right. Wasn't there to hold you and my boy. Died without me. Never touch you or him again. Should shoot myself. Maybe I deserve. Can't. Maybe soon. October 31st. Black rain falling outside. Geiger jumping. Should let it kill me, but bottling water from back of the cave all the same. November 2nd. Sounds dead outside, but can't look. Geiger goes lethal 15 feet from the cave mouth. Do the math. Radiation goes down before water runs out, or I never leave this cave. The next entry is year 2078. January 1st. Happy New Year. 2 months in cave. Still lethal outside. Don't get it. An army they said 2 to 4 weeks cleared fallout. Less than a month's water left. Been mopping condensation off cave walls, wriggling shirt into bottles, trading calories for H2O. Food stocks holding. Thanks, USGS. If there was even a chance I'd see the 2 of you again, I'd run outside. January 10th. Sounded like windstorm out there for 2 days. Radiation down 500. What happened? January 15th. Took a peek. Snow. It glows green. January 28th. Radiation low enough I could risk short exposure outside. More important, cave stream now drinkable if I use rad drugs. January 30th. There is nothing alive out there. And with that, we have one of our best and most harrowing accounts of what happened in the Great War. In the back of the cave, we can find the stream that Randall Clark used for weeks in the immediate aftermath of the Great War for water. And as we make our way out of the cave, there are more traps waiting for us. And there is a bouquet of grenades above our head that we cannot reach. However, if we jump, we are able to reach it. And now we can exit the cave. Now, this is only the beginning of Randall Clark's story. Little did he know he had a far larger importance to play in the world. And here we can see a man who used to serve in the army, who was paranoid and worried about war, who was not with his family when the bombs dropped. An absolutely terrible fate. So our next location is Two Skies Cave. This is a location just north of the spine. So it is a location that players might easily stumble upon at the beginning of the game. So let's check it out. And here's the location on the mini-map of the cave. And just like the previous cave, we're going to want to be very careful as we trek through this place because there are traps all over the place. Early on in our playthrough, we came across a fork in the road. You can go left or right. I decided to go right for now. And then we came to another fork that goes left and right. However, there is a tripwire right here, and it's kind of disguised by these branches. So please be careful of that. And then there's the shotgun, which would be activated by the tripwire in that bush. As we make our way down, we find a flooded section of the cave. And it isn't too long, so if you don't have the rebreather, then you can just make it to the other side pretty easily, which opens up into this large central chamber. And on the banks of this chamber to the west, there will be a door. But be careful as you approach because there are 2 plasma mines on the ground. I managed to disable one, however I couldn't get the other one. I panicked and I just kind of backed off to let it safely detonate. There's also a bear trap next to the door, so be mindful of that. And after picking the average locked door, we come into a little chamber where obviously somebody had made a living. There are some dishes, a campfire, some logs to sit around. Underneath this kind of wooden platform, we can find a campfire sack, which has some junk inside of it. Then going up on this wooden platform, we can find another survival cache with all kinds of helpful materials inside of it. Besides that, there's just some junk and then a bedroll and like 2 makeshift beds, and then this larger kind of rest area with a reloading bench and an explosives crate. Inside the explosives crate is some dynamite and other scrap. And then we can find the next terminal from Randall Clark, and the entries read, Year 2083, May 5th. The comeback goes on. Add prickly gear to the list of survivors with honey mesquite and banana yucca. Odd nodules, mutations, but safe to eat. Harvesting, oh so careful, never take more than a fifth. Mouth waters every time I'm about to eat something that isn't from a can. May 7th. Clouds of those stinging flies near fallen tree I call the napper. Little flashes in the cloud. Something dragonfly size that zaps them mid-air then scoops them up. Something new. May 19th. Bighorn sheep. A family. Ram, ewe, and little one. Fucking goddamn it. May 20th. The sheep were different, brawny. Ewe had curved horns just like the ram. Seen some tiny lizards, but this is first time seen animals that big. Fingers crossed. 5-10 years breeding, fresh meat, hides, horns. I know it's time to go back, Shar, when winter has passed. Year 2084. June 14th. Just got back, tired, good scrounging along the way, ended up dragging back a cart of stuff. Right tomorrow, sleep. June 15th. Departed April 10th. Walk to Salt Lake City took 15 days. Would have been 7 to 9 back in the old days, but had to circle pockets of radiation and forged along the way. Don't know what I was thinking. Imagine I'd find my house, dig through rubble, find something. Your bones, I hoped, and little nuts. Would have buried them, here in Zion maybe. Salt Lake City is mostly craters, warped steel girders where high-rises sat, mounds of bricks. Never found our house, didn't even find street. What wasn't a crater was scorched clean. Want to believe it was fast. A flash, both of you vaporized. Lies to make me feel better. I'll never know. Which part of the city got hit first? Northeast, and you both died in a blink. Farther away, and you burned alive screaming, or the blast broken glass and bits of brick, and wood splinters shredding you like hamburger. Look at it, coward, and listen. Don't turn away. Face it. If you'd been brave, lucky man, you would have found a spot and blown your brains out. But not you. You took your time walking back, made a shopping trip of it. Scrounger. The truck was still there on the 77 north of Spanish Fork. The Chrysalis, too. But no sign of the old couple's bones. Outside Neffy, I caught a trail. 3 men, tracks heading toward Fountain Green. Thought about following but didn't. Stupid fantasy of friends. More likely cannibals. June 20th. Took 2 days to build door and electrify it. No soliciting, assholes. Home sweet fucking home. Next, year 2095. September 20th. I count 28 of them. 11 adult males, 8 females, 9 children aged 2 to 10. Some rifles and pistols in bad repair. Old world clothes. Ratty. September 22nd. Got close enough last night to hear them talk. Spanish, I think. From Mexico? Heard them say paradiso a bunch. Think that means paradise. Here to stay then. Seem harmless. Seem. October 5th. The one I call Maria is pregnant. Think the father is Jose, but she spends a lot of time with Pablo too. October 7th. Pedro ran out to pee in the stream and would have seen me if he looked to his left. Too close. Need to give them space. November 10th. Jose broke his leg chasing a bighorn. Too far from camp for them to hear. Told myself to leave it but couldn't. 300 yards from their camp, did my best Jose screaming imitation until a bunch of them came looking. Then strung them along to the crest where they could hear the real Jose. Probably useless. Compound fracture, broke the skin. November 11th. Infection. So many goddamn words nearly the same. Think I'd be fluent. But anyway, Jose's leg has got it, so he's going to die. Nature for you. Of course they're giving prayer a try. November 12th. Left bottle of antibiotics on a rock outside their camp last night. They thank God, Dios, of course, as though that asshole saw fit to burn the world, but still cared enough to leave some medicine on a rock. November 15th. Jose will always limp, but otherwise he'll be okay. Good deed for the month. Will they make it through the winter? And with that, we can see that our friend Randall Clark is actually a fairly good person. He does want to help people, but he wants to stay reclusive, probably because he cannot trust anyone. After that, we can find the electrified door that he was talking about. There's also an average lock terminal if you come from the other side that will shut down the electric fence, or you can destroy the generator like I did. But here we learn about a Mexican group of Mexicans coming through Zion Valley that Randall Clark decided to help. After that, we shall continue our adventure through Zion. Also, based on the previous entries, we can see that Randall Clark apparently stayed at Two Skies Cave for a significant period of time, over 10 years. Which is pretty remarkable. The first entry was in 2083, and the second entry was in 2095, but for whatever reason, Randall Clark moved far north to the Narrows to Stone Bones Cave. And as I just said, Stone Bones Cave is located in the Narrows, kind of on the middle part here, but you're going to need to climb up the Narrows a bit in order to reach this location. As we enter, we can kind of see where the cave gets its name. The stones in here kind of form bones, these stalagmites. On the ground are 3 dead bodies. Who knows what happened to them, if they were unfortunate souls who stumbled upon this cave and faced Randall Clark's traps, or if they were killed by Randall Clark himself. As we move forward, we have to be careful because of several booby traps. I was not careful and accidentally stepped in a bear trap, injuring my leg. We continue making our way through, being careful, knowing that we could easily die due to these centuries-old traps. As we reached the top of this hill, we found a bucket which we could not move. We can assume perhaps it was nailed to the ground with a mine behind it. Came to a fork in the road and I went left, going into this large central chamber where we can assume Randall Clark made his living for a significant period of time. And in this area, we can see it would make for a good place for player housing because there is a workbench and a reloading bench, and then we have a reloading bench footlocker with nothing really inside of it. On top of this platform, we can find another survival cache, again with various loot, and a bedroll where we can sleep. Across from the terminal, we can find some Desert Ranger armor, which you definitely want to pick up, because if you finish Honest Hearts and you don't pick it up, it will disappear forever. And that would be quite unfortunate, as it is a unique variant of the Ranger armor. Right now I was wearing Riot armor from Lonesome Road, and now I'm wearing the Desert armor, and as you can see, it is unique, and it once belonged to our friend Randall Clark. On the terminal, we can find 2 entries which read, Year 2096, February 11th. Fuckers killed all the men. I think they would have taken the woman alive, but Marina and Selena opened fire, and some of the others went for their guns, so they shot them down, and some of the kids with them. If I could have warned them. February 12th. Elena and Carmen and 5 children still alive, being kept in a pen. There are more than 100 of these assholes in blue suits. Every suit says 22 on the back. Why? Armed to the teeth with submachine guns, pistols, estimate 60% male. Everyone seems to follow the dark-haired guy, but can't get close enough to tell. Assholes are disciplined. Patrols, sentries, they mean business. Say I go in at night and get the woman and children out. Where to next? But I have to get them out. Have to. February 13th. Recon during night. Well organized. Sentries along most approaches, but stream not covered. Are they sick? Lots of coughing fits. Tuberculosis? Women and children still in pen. Will try to infiltrate by stream tomorrow night. February 14th. They ate them. February 19th. Ambush along Riverside Trail. 6 males killed. Heard their coughing a mile away. Used their grenades to booby-trap bodies. Kept half. Secured 6 SMGs, 500 rounds 10mm, 6 frags. February 20th. Ambush along Riverside Trail. 2 males died checking bodies. Killed 2 more with rifle. Shot 1 through calf and let asshole crawl off to spread message. Coughed like I'd shot him through the lungs. February 23rd. Ambush half-mile east of Coal Pits Wash. 8 males killed. Year 2096, Part 2. February 28th. Ambush in the Narrows. 6 males killed. Took a 10mm through thigh. Steel jacket. Miss femoral. Lucky. Used tourniquet to make sure no blood splattered on rocks back to cave. Have set traps all along entrance passage, but if they find me, it will be a matter of time. Still, 24 confirmed kills in 10 days, at least 1/3 their combat force. Not bad for an old man. March 2nd. Lucky, 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 lucky. Patrol was small, 3 men. Screaming woke me. Point man caught under deadfall. Panic fire ricocheted into the cave, almost hit me. Crawled forward and killed them all with SMGs. Nearly used frags. Stupid. Finger and pin when remembered ricochets. Leaving at once. No other patrols in the area, but they'll be searching Narrows for these 3. Taking as much food as I can drag with me and heading to cave south. And as we can see here, Randall Clark came into contact and conflict with the survivors of Vault 22. And it would appear that the survivors of Vault 22 had something wrong with them since they were killing and eating innocent people. It appears that perhaps the infection had taken some kind of grasp or hold on their mind. They were still rational enough to form a team or a group, but it seems like they lost some control over their desires. And I also wanted to point out that west of Caterpillar's Mound is a small camp, and we can assume that this camp used to belong to Vault 22 because there are spore carriers here, and here we can find a pen along with a dead skeleton and a camp, kind of signifying that this was the location where those Mexicans were eaten by the Vault 22 survivors. Also, outside of Half Mouse Cave, we can find a dead body crushed by a rock. This is likely a Vault 22 survivor that was crushed by Randall Clark's deadfall trap. So another pretty cool reference to what Randall Clark did in this canyon. And something that I thought was particularly interesting in this terminal entry is Randall Clark asked, why did these people that came to Zion Valley have 22 on their back? Obviously, anybody familiar with Fallout knows that these are the Vault-Tec jumpsuits, standard issue. And you can obviously see these jumpsuits on Vault Boy and other advertisements, including TV commercials. So to me, it's a little bit strange that Randall Clark didn't know what these numbers were. Perhaps he never watched TV, or he just didn't pay attention much to the outside world. Nonetheless, I think it's pretty interesting. And the next location we will make our way to is Cueva, Guarache. This location is a cave located kind of in the middle of the map, and as Randall Clark said, he made his way south after the incident in the Narrows. And here on the minimap, you can see the location of Cueva, Guarache. It is just southeast of Ranger Station Osprey. And as always, we will have to be very careful as we make our way through the cave. These caves are often booby-trapped to the teeth. And as we enter, we'll encounter a fork in the road. I decided to go left, which kind of slants down, and then we come to another fork, and I went left again, kind of coming into this large empty chamber that had some spores and spore plants inside of it. After clearing out the enemies, we could continue down our path further into the cave. This long winding corridor led us to a very large central room that had some spore carriers in it. I would have to say, I think the reason some of these later caves have spore carriers and the earlier ones do not is perhaps the Vault 22 survivors were searching these caves for Randall Clark, and they died in the caves, or they became fully infected inside of the caves. That would explain why later caves in the Randall Clark series have spore carriers in them, while the first few caves do not. And then on the second level, we can find these explosive crates with obviously explosives in them and some other junk. There is then a gate that will lead us to a room where we have to be careful of mines. And once again, we can find a room where Randall Clark made his home for a period of time. And once again, this location would be optimal for player housing due to all the storage and the workbenches. And always there's some random loot in this area. Inside of the platform, we have a bed and a survival cache. Again, we can loot and get some pretty good loot. always very nice to find. There was also a gun case with an average lock, and upon opening it, we could find a plethora of different ammo types, along with some weapons like a flamer and a butter knife, and a sawed-off shotgun. After that, we could go over towards the terminal and to see what happened to Randall Clark during his conflict with the Vault 22 survivors. And it reads, Year 2097, January 13th. The coffers are gone finally. All 34 that still lived ate their dead for strength, then struck out southeast. Victory. 10 months of killing. All I feel is cold. They deserved every goddamn bit of it. January 17th. Thought I was dreaming, but the screams were real. For a moment, thought they tricked me, just pretended to leave Zion. Then sent a patrol to track me down. But the screams were a woman's. Edged around a corner and passageway to have a look. One vaulter. Ankle deep in bear trap. Leveled my SMG, but the way she was crying stopped me. How she screamed when she saw me. Been their boogeyman a long time. Named Sylvie. Claims she ran away from them. Calls them evil people, children of the devil. Turns out they were sick after all. Something they caught in a vault they lived in. She never came down with it. Yet. So help me, I wound up being her nurse. January 18th. Her story matches what I learned from my interrogations last year, but according to her, let's just say it was bad to be a woman in that group, so when they left, she slipped away. She knows next to nothing about living outside a vault, says she wants to learn. Year 2100, September 9th. Never been so scared in my life. Canada wasn't scary, just sickening. The criminality of it. The end of the world wasn't scary. When I knew you and Alex were dead, I didn't have anything left to be scared about. I just went on for some reason. I wasn't scared fighting the Vaulters. It was like I kept daring them to finish me. When I killed them, I think it was the closest I came to feeling happy in years. Sylvie is pregnant, and I'm terrified. Ridiculous old man. A father again at 47? In this world? She's so excited and so trusting. Says it's God's will that we have this child. Like nothing can go wrong. You see, Shar, she doesn't know about you and Alex. Never told her. Almost did sometimes, but what you and I had, it seemed wrong to share it. More like an old man not wanting his young wife to know how he failed the one who come before her. Hiking into Torqueville for medical books and supplies. This will be done right. I'm sorry, Shar. Hope you can forgive me. Year 2101, March 5th. Baby was breech. Would have been a son. Michael. Did my best to turn him. Failed. Must have done cesarean too late. Had to put Sylvie out and she never woke up. Buried them south of the Narrows. Well, this time I was by their side. So much better. I think I can finally do it. Blow my fucking brains out all over this goddamn cave. And with that, we find even more depressing news about Randall. He was successful in getting rid of the crazed Vault 22 survivors. However, his second attempt at building a family was also met with a similar failure. It's very, very depressing for our friend, and I can only imagine the loneliness and helplessness that he felt, although, truly, none of it was his fault, which makes it even more devastating. However, as you might have guessed, Randall Clark's journey did not end here. Our next location is Morning Glory Cave. This cave is situated next to the crashed plane in Zion Valley, and there was also some lizards who interrupted my scenic shot. But with that, let's go ahead and check it out. Morning Glory Cave is located just north of Patriarch's Campground, and while accessing this location is pretty easy, I did find that there are a lot of enemies that spawn around here, whether it be like whitelegs or those geckos. Upon entering the cave, we will get a warning from Waking Cloud, as she states that this place is not to be touched and it is forbidden, because it belongs to the father in the cave. And we will soon learn who the father in the cave is. It is also worth noting that every location we visited before this is entirely optional, meaning the player could easily miss all of Randall Clark's story. However, this cave is not optional, and it could be your first encounter with Randall Clark, And the reason you have to go to this cave, it is connected to the quest, the Grand Staircase, and we have to go to this cave in order to fetch the Grand Staircase map holotape in order to continue that quest. And as we make our way further into the cave, we will enter this main central chamber, and there's going to be several spore carriers and spore plants, so make sure to be prepared to fight them. We can actually jump our way to the top here, and there's an ammunition box on the top of this rock in the central chamber, and there's actually some stuff up here. There are some bear traps, along with a table that has an ammunition box and an explosives crate, although there isn't a whole lot of loot inside of those boxes, but I thought it was pretty cool and pretty interesting. And then on the south side of the cave, there is a door that will lead us further into the cave and to Randall Clark's living area. Be careful because there is a tripwire that is very well hidden towards the top, and there are some shotguns that would shoot you if you tripped it. So definitely be careful. But at this point, if you've been following me or been doing this yourself, you know very well that you must be careful when exploring these places. Behind an average locked door is Randall Clark's living quarters. This room is overgrown with a lot of vegetation, and there's also a table with an egg timer on it, but not a whole lot of other loot. Until we get to the platform, we can find a bedroll and of course the survival cache, and it has various good loot inside of it, along with the Grand Staircase map holotape. So really good, and we can continue the quest. This is the last survival cache that we need to find for that small marked objective. Then we can look at the terminal and see what happened next. Year 2108, August 22nd. 10 sets of tracks, half-mile northeast of Canyon entrance. Barefoot. August 23rd. Saw them through scope. Corpses walking around. Finally gone crazy. Dementia, maybe. August 24th. I'm not crazy. They're real. God damn it, they are real. Rushed me the moment they saw me. Snarling like animals. They look like corpses, but they don't smell rotted. I'll be putting them out of their misery. Doing for them what I could never do for myself. September 3rd. The last of them. All gone. Year 2113. February 5th. Happy birthday to me. Happy birthday to me. Happy birthday, you useless old dinosaur. Happy birthday to me. Happy 60th. What do you get, a man who has everything? A bottle of whiskey and a 12-gauge slug through the roof of the mouth. Woo! Come now. What do I have to do to prove to myself that I've lived long enough? I'm a shriveled old man, white beard, seen enough sunrises and sunsets, saw the big sunset, been hanging on through the long night 36 years now. Ridiculous. Not kidding myself into thinking there's anything on the other side of this. Fine. Things weren't so bad before I was born. Char and Alex, Sylvia and Michael who could have been, thoughts of the beloved dead before dying. Goodbye, Zion. February 6th. Fucking didn't do it. Coward as usual. Maybe 2 bottles next year. Year 2123, April 25th. 24 of them. Half boys, half girls. Youngest is 8, maybe. Oldest 13 to 14. Dirty and scrawny, but on foot a long time. Children's Crusade. Struck camp on nearly the same spot as Los Mexicanos. 30 years and a lifetime ago. I spent 2 nights listening to them. English, literate. One of them reads stories while the little ones fall asleep. They escaped someplace they called the school, but can't figure out where it was. When they want a little one to behave, they tell him to stop or the principal will get you. Principal better not show up or I'll blow his goddamn head off. I can still shoot straight. So Randall Clark spent a considerable amount of time in Morning Glory Cave, at least 15 years, and celebrated his 60th and 70th birthday in here, fought some ghouls, and came into contact with some children from a place called the school. On to the next chapter. The next location is Red Gate, which is located northwest of the entrance to Zion Valley, just south of Morning Glory Cave, as you can see here on the Pip-Boy. We'll jump straight into this location because I found it important to show off this location how I experienced. When I first showed up here, there were 2 Yao Guais, which I immediately shot and they became Ghost of She, just kind of replicas and not nearly as cool because I'm sure the flame went away, but those Yao Guais ran away, but I'm sure we'll encounter them later. Then over here we can find a camp of white legs, which is a part of the quest, the Advanced Scouts, so we have to take out these white legs, so I went ahead and decided to kill all of them. The battle that ensued was for the most part pretty easy. Using the anti-materia rifle was pretty easy. Then there is a White Legs War Totem, and you can actually take these totems to force the White Legs to leave and not fight, so there is a pacifist approach to this quest, if the player so chooses. Inside this camp, there really isn't a whole lot. We have some campfire sacks with some pretty minor loot. As I went around to the northwest, I found the Yao Guai, and took him out with the help of Walking Cloud. But these Yao Guais were actually pretty difficult to fight, and I found them to be more difficult than the White Legs themselves. Then as we made our way to the north, we found another White Leg camp, again a part of the quest, the Advanced Scout. So we have to take out the White Legs pretty easy. I don't even think I took any damage because the White Legs only targeted Walking Cloud, making my life very easy. After that, we have to find a way to get to the top of the Red Gate. I kind of went around the mountain to see what I could find, and as I was going around the mountain, I encountered this second Yao Guai from earlier. However, this fight was pretty easy using the riot shotgun and the damage I dealt earlier to this Yao Guai. The riot shotgun is so overpowered. Then on the western side of Red Rock, I finally found a little slope up, and I could easily make my way to the top, where we discovered the body of Randall Dean Clark. At this site, we can see that Randall Clark finally met his end. We chased him around all of Zion Valley, followed his story, followed his triumphs, followed his despair, and it ended up here. And if we search the body, we can find out more about Randall's last days. Upon looting the duffel bag next to the skeleton, we can find a lot of loot and a holotape titled Year 2124. Randall Clark would have been approaching 71 years old when he wrote this holotape, but he fell about a month short of reaching 71, still a very old age in the nuclear apocalypse. We make our way to the nearby mountain to try and imagine what Randall saw in his last moments. And the holotape reads, Year 2124, January 2nd. I've been leaving notes for them and gifts. They liked the books, started with stories but moved on to weapon manuals, medical books, practical stuff. In the notes, well, it's embarrassing. Almost like those cards people used to give to each other, everything's sweet and loving. I tell them to read and to learn and to make the most of their new home. I tell them that I'm giving them Zion as a gift to make up for all of the sorrows of their lives so far and all the sorrows man has visited on man. I tell them to be kind to each other and modest. I tell them never to hurt each other, but that if someone else comes along and tries to hurt them, to strike back with righteous anger. Stuff like that. I sign every note, the Father, because, well, just because. January 18th. Have I mentioned that I'm dying? Mine's still sharp. Lungs are the problem. Might be cancer. Cough's been getting worse for months. Finally, there's blood in it. Getting harder to visit my little friends. Breath so short. I've given away most of what I own. They'll find the rest in the caves when they get a little older. I don't want them to find me, though. The father is a broken down old man. Disappointment. It's time. I don't want another birthday. January 23rd. It's cold enough that I won't last long in the high mound up next to Red Gate. I think I've got enough breath left in me to make it. I'll just lie down and stare at the sky. Feels right. I hope they'll do well. I hope no harm comes to them, from within or without. Did my best to prepare them with the last few notes. Said something kind about each one of them, what makes each one special. Told them the Father was pleased by their kind natures, and that it would be up to them to handle things on their own from now on. That I'll be silent, but still watching and still caring. Lying then. Oh yes. Lied to you, Shar, and Alex, and Sylvie. Told you I'd be with you forever, but I wouldn't go back and unsay it once if I could. What was the point of it all? So many failures. But I never forgot your face, or Little Nut's, or, Sylvie's. They used to say that happened after a while, but it never did for me. Maybe the only point of all of this lying was to keep those pictures in my head going for as long as I could. It was the only life I could give you. Not a day went by without. It wasn't choice. I chose to die again and again, just never did. Body had its own drive. Well, the little ones will need it. Species will need it if it's to continue. That blind drive onward. I wish them well. It's been a gift to me, at the end of it all, to behold innocence. Goodbye, Zion. Randall Dean Clark. February 5th, 2053 to January 23rd, 2124. And if you haven't made the connection by now, the tribe, the Sorrows, are descendants of the children that Randall Clark helped. And the reason the Sorrows refer to the father is not out of God, but instead they were referring to their god of Randall Clark. For all of those children who wandered into Zion Valley oh so long ago, Randall Clark was their father. He was their god. Not only did he give them supplies and give them aid, but he also gave them lessons in morality, and he influenced their culture and their lifestyle to this day. And there we have it, the full story of Randall Dean Clark. Now, of course, in the Unexplored Mojave, we try to visit locations that might be easily missed or overlooked by players. We visited several locations over the course of this video, and I hope you guys enjoyed. But the larger picture of this video was that in the Fallout universe, we're talking about nuclear war. So many people died, and it's easy to overlook that kind of destruction on a real human level. What I love so much about Randall Dean Clark is it shows that destruction on a level which we can grasp. We can see how terrible war is, and we can see how terrible the fate of the world in such a situation is. This was a very special episode of the Unexplored Mojave, and if you guys stayed tuned for this long, I just want to say I sincerely appreciate it, and I had a lot of fun making this project. Huge shout out to Vicious Idiot, MEP8231, and Weber Wilson 6092 for giving me a lot of these locations as recommendations, and this video would not be possible without people like you. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. If you have any recommendations for the next location, please post them in the comment section below. And, as always, until next time.